Gareth, man, thank you so much for coming on the show here today. Really, really excited to have you on. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Gareth Sapstead. If you can't tell by the accent already, I'm from the UK. I often get mistaken for Australian. I don't know why. But anyway,
Okay.
so I'm from the UK. The large majority of my client base, though, these days are in the US. So I mostly work with people that want to essentially transform their body. So want to get into great shape. So whether that be some of the really high level bikini competitors that I work with, the female bikini competitors. So for example, I've created multiple world champions there, to people that want to, I don't know, they need to get in shape because they've been given a contract to get on the front cover of Men's Health magazine and they've got to get in shape for, the next 12 weeks or something. Those are kind of the people that I work with. So in large part, very high end transformations. They're already people that tend to be training, tend to already be lifting 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. There's some crazy people out there. And they need to kind of have that person that they listen to, they trust, and who they know will guide them from where they are right now to where they want to be. It's also interesting because my background is as a strength and conditioning coach. So I originally started out as a strength and conditioning coach. Well, I've been coaching for about 19, coming up 20 years now. As we all do, start off at a personal trainer in a big box gym. That gradually transitioned into S&C coach, internships, got my CSCS, undergrad, postgrad degrees, all that kind of stuff, because I thought I wanted to work with elite level athletes. And I did, and I still do to a degree. But the more and more, I suppose, elite level, soccer, rugby in particular, worked with a lot of rugby athletes in the past and still do. But the more of those that I work with, actually, I found that it wasn't as interesting as working with the people who basically just wanted to get in great shape. The thing that I specialize in really is transformation. But what I do differently is I apply those strength and conditioning principles over to those transformation clients. So we're very testing based. We're very systems based. We're very kind of periodization based. I like to set an end goal and say, okay, what is that end goal? When it's strength and conditioning, it might be, okay, I want to improve your 10-yard time, right? With us, it's, okay, I want your body fat to be hitting this, by this date. And we work backwards off of that. So it's like, okay, what do we need to do to get from, where you are right now to that end goal? What does that look like? And that is basically, in simple terms, what I do. I still work with some high level athletes from field sports. I've worked with some England rugby players, for example, recently, some Premiership Academy football teams, soccer teams. But in all honesty, that's not the stuff I enjoy. I like working with the people that literally just want to look great naked.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm always interested because obviously you've been doing this for a while now. How did you get started in this space? Like, what got you started in the world of physical preparation, strength and conditioning? What was kind of like your draw into the world?
Yeah, I think probably like many people, I think from a really early age, I just found my home in a gym. From the age of maybe 14, 15 years old, I was really into playing rugby, got to a really good level in rugby, just like a tier below national level, some quite high kind of academy level rugby from a young age. So being part of, I suppose, that sport, you do just learn from an early age, you've got to get strong. So the first thing that you do is you get a barbell, you get one of these, 5 kilo, really long barbells that often have like a screw together in the middle of it with these, in the UK, I don't know what it's like in the US, but we have like these golden plates that basically are filled with like cement.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that kind of style. So when I was about 14 years old, I had one of these in my room, and I was floor pressing, I was doing bicep curls, shoulder presses, and actually even from the age of 14, I was hip thrusting and glute bridging in my room at 14 years old, just kind of making up these exercises. I think I was even kind of making up some landmine stuff, or as much as you could do, kind of with these, really cheap and not very effective pieces of equipment, to be honest. And then went to college, university. In between that, I got a job in a gym instructor, got my qualifications to become a personal trainer. paid my way through college, university as a personal trainer, mostly working with Gen Pop. When I was in university, this was in my post-grad university, did a lot of internships. So I was doing a lot of work for free. It was at the same time where I was trying to do full-time personal training at the same time. So I was basically holding down a full-time personal training job whilst doing internships, whilst doing a postgraduate degree, because, just
Oh my
my
gosh.
upbringing, family, didn't come from a lot of money. I was trying to pay my way through things, and I just could not afford a full-time internship with somewhere working for free. So I was basically just overloading my plate to learn as much as I could, while at the
Yep.
same time try and pay my way through things, and try and just, actually be able to live a bit of a life and have some money in the bank at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When I left my postgraduate degree, I was the head of youth performance at a couple of different rugby clubs at a really good level. So I was working with young athletes primarily. But the whole time I was still working as a personal trainer, because, to be honest, that is kind of the thing I enjoyed. It was that
Yeah.
working with Gen Pop. It was seeing the back issues, the shoulder issues, the cranky elbows, all that stuff. And it was the problem solving and seeing all those kinds of people that I enjoyed most, rather than necessarily even young athletes. They're still at a good level. They do what they're told, but it's not so much for me like a problem solving thing. It's a delivery thing for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of found my love that way. And then fast forward, many years down the line, I think probably 6-7 years ago, gradually started to pick up a few athletes, a few NPC, IFBB, basically physique sport athletes and females.
Yeah.
One or two of those ended up doing really, really well. We developed them to a really good level. One of them got to the Olympia, did really, really well. And it kind of exploded from there a little bit.
Yep.
Throughout that entire time, I've done various like Men's Health magazine contracts and things like that, and transforming men and women for the front cover of various magazines, really. I think, to be honest, I started to pick up the majority of my, I suppose, that the higher end competitor type clients actually when I started writing for T Nation. I think I was just seen in a slightly different space. The
Yeah.
things that I was writing about were things that were appealing to those people. So I was covering a lot of like glutes focused topics, a lot of like core abdominal training stuff. I was kind
Yep.
of covering stuff that people weren't necessarily covering at that time. And it was a
Yep.
little bit more female focused than kind of the more meathead stuff that was going on at
Yeah.
the time. It's like, you had a lot of the knee and shoulder stuff covered. Eric Cressy covered the shoulder stuff all the time. There was
Yeah.
Brett Contreras, he was the glute guy. We had Joe DeFranco with all his shoulder shockers and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like,
Yep.
I think I can kind of fit in here, and I think I've got my own take on things. And
Yep.
I think 200 articles later for T Nation, I think, as I said, that ended up helping to grow that online space a little bit more. And I've
Yeah.
just ended up working with more and more kind of high end transformation people, really. So that's
Yeah.
quite a long story, but
No, I
obviously
love it.
it's a lot longer than that, and there are various kind of paths that I've
Yeah.
gone throughout the way. But that's kind of the quick version, I suppose.
Yeah, well, and we're going to talk a ton about this because I'm just so genuinely interested in what you do. But before we get into some of the details, I think one of the things I would love to hear from you, because we talked before the show, right? Like, I love shows like this because, yes, I train strength and conditioning. Yes, I'm in a weight room all day. But I think our viewpoints, while similar, are also very nuanced. And you've got a lot of things that I think make you unique in what you do. So I love, and I would love to hear, like, your general training philosophy, right? Like, what at its essence, whether you're training a footballer or a rugby, player or a physique competitor, what are some of like your big rocks or things that you would say make up your philosophy?
Yeah. So as I said, I'm very goal focused with my
Yep.
clients. So during that onboarding process, And I suppose that's one of the things I've come from my S&C world. It's like I'm big on assessments. So
Yep.
where do we start out from day one? Where are you? Okay, what does your movement look like, right? Okay, now I've played about with likes of a functional movement screen and a few other kind of movement screens. I kind of do my own take on stuff these days. I know what I personally look for, and I'm not necessarily comparing it against other stats. I'm just like, okay, where are we right now in these movements? What are some, let's just get some basic hinge patterns. Let's get some basic split squat patterns. Let's look at your T-spine extension, rotation. Let's just look at you in more of an integrated form and then more of an isolated fashion as well. Just, shoulder internal, external rotation. Just some basic movement assessment stuff just to see where you're at right now. With obviously what I do, we want to see where your body fat is as well. Now, the reality is, an online coaching client, you're not going to have access to, a bod pod or a DEXA machine or something like that all the time.
Sure.
Luckily, there are some gyms that might have access to like an in-body scan. There are ups and downs to that. They're not the most accurate thing in the world. But my take on that is, if it's inaccurate now, in 12 weeks, it's still going to be inaccurate. It's something. It's something.
Are you trending in the right direction?
Exactly. Are we moving in the right direction?
Sure.
If you're here with me in person or previous to me having my own facility, I'm contracting at various gyms. But if you're training with me in person, then we're using skin fold calipers. Personally, it's one of the most accurate things to do. Even if you're not putting that into some kind of equation, just getting how many millimeters thickness each site is just a good way to track where things are at and are we moving in the right direction. So that's where we start at day one. And then we go, okay, where do we need to be at on, on day 90 as an example, or day 180 or whatever. And then we work backwards off that. Okay. So, it's like, okay, let's start with a 5-week phase. Okay. Week 1, onboarding. Let's see how things are. Let's test some movements. If it's an online client, then we're looking at your form. You're sending me videos. I've basically thrown you in the deep end. I've thrown some stuff at you based on where I think you're at right now. But the reality is 9 out of 10 of those exercises might not work well for you right now. We might need to keep changing some of those things around or need to make like minor tweaks to things. So we're just tweaking some things around in week 1. Week 2, we're happy. Week 3, we're starting to get some personal bests. Week 4, maybe we're putting a little bit of more load on the bar, or we're getting an extra rep or something. I'm a big fan of more auto-regulated periodization. So rather than predicting load, we tend to keep things the same for maybe a 4 to 6, sometimes an 8-week phase. Again, depends whether it's online or in person. And there are some nuances to that. There are some differences I've found throughout the years with online versus in person, how you can apply certain things. And it comes down to client retention at the end of the day as well, and contact you have with them. But we're basically looking at how things are over that period of time. If you're feeling great one week, let's push it hard. If you're not, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's maybe take a deload week if we need to, but let's not predict those loads. And then we get to say week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Let's see when things are starting to plateau. Can we push through that plateau by sticking on the same plan? Or is it best we start to maybe layer in some of the assistance exercises? So let's keep those big meat and potatoes exercises. Let's say, I don't know, we've got you doing an RDL or something. That's your primary lift. You've got your 2 primary lifts are an RDL and a rear foot elevated split squat. Okay, they're your primaries, and we might have some movements off of that. So we might keep those in at that mark still, and we'll layer in some new assistance exercises. So the client sees or they think it's a brand new program. The reality is we're still working towards those same exercises. We're still able to almost push past that plateau a little bit with those same exercises, but they've also had the fun because some more novelty has been thrown in because we've rotated some exercises in. I'm also a really big fan of, I heard an analogy years ago. I think it was from Louis Simmons, Westside Barbell, and he was speaking about cars going around a racetrack the same way, okay, and it being the same with exercises. And his analogy was great, and it won't sound the same coming from me, but basically, if you've got a car going around the racetrack the same way over and over and over again, there's naturally going to be more wear and tear on certain areas of the car. Suddenly, if we turn that race car around and start going around the other way, suddenly we're a lot fresher. There's not as much wear and tear on the areas that have already,
Mm.
it could be the tires or whatever. There's not so much wear and tear on those areas if we start going down a different direction for a while as well. And that's where that kind of exercise rotation comes in. So it's kind of like,
Yep.
what do we need to be doing and keeping in there for as long as we can to keep moving forwards and pushing through that plateau, but also to make sure that we're, eliminating wear and tear, keeping you, pain-free, because that's number one. We keep you pain-free. If we keep you pain-free, we can keep pushing, right? We can keep working hard,
Yes.
and we can hit your goals. And then also number three is enjoying yourself. What can we also add in that can, enhance your training experience and allow you to actually enjoy this process while seeing progression as well? There are sometimes I would love to give someone, tell them to knuckle down and just be like, okay, 12 weeks. I want us to do the same exercises. But the
Yep.
reality is, from what I see, and especially more in the online space, people just aren't going to stick to the same thing for 12 weeks. And I'm not that coach to be like, you've got to get it done. No, you've got to get it done. I'm the coach that's like, okay, let's find a sneaky way to see if we can do certain things for that 12-week phase. But then let's layer some things into that. Part of that process, and I suppose the big thing with what I do is that nutritional component to things as well. So training wise, it tends to be, we are always chasing it's hypertrophy. We're in a hypertrophy training phase. I'm a big fan of like that conjugated style of training. So I will find ways to sneak in some pure strength stuff, some power stuff. I will use power stuff as plyo drills, ballistic drills, things like that. Actually, in my warm-ups, I call them primers. I'm like, okay, if we do this primer drill, it's going to increase your force output. It's going to increase your acceleration. It's going to actually increase how much weight you're lifting in your workout. So if you can lift more in your workout, you're able to stimulate more tissue and create a bigger hypertrophy stimulus. So I'm selling them on the power work, but in my head, it's doing them some good anyway, because we lose power as we get older. I just like it from just kind of, how the tissues adapt from it over time. I like hitting those type 2 fibers as well. And as I said, I think there is a carryover to that hypertrophy work. So I'm always trying to sneak in a little bit of power. I'm trying to sneak in a bit of strength. I'm in that low rep range sometimes, but then I suppose 80% of that training is in that hypertrophy rep range, typically 6 to 20 reps. It depends on the person. And that is the difference. We go from one phase, which might be 4, 5, 6 weeks long, to another phase. It's not like we're going from a hypertrophy phase to a strength phase to a power phase to a specialization phase or whatever. We're hypertrophy phase to hypertrophy phase to hypertrophy phase. The variation we might use is more of that's an accumulation phase, that's an intensification phase. So it's like high, low, high, low, high, low kind of thing with a lower rep range hypertrophy range. So it's more, I suppose, like what you might call like a myofibrillar hypertrophy phase, whereas one's more chasing more the sarcoplasmic hypertrophy with that higher rep range. But yeah, coming back to things, nutrition within that whole process is a big thing, especially if we're driving fat loss, and just making sure that we're making those weekly changes to drive fat loss, but also not compromise on building strength and enable us to build lean muscle tissue. So those are kind of the big rocks for me, and that's my philosophy.
Dude, I absolutely love that. And I kind of alluded to this before we jumped on, but just like going through your YouTube videos, your Instagram, I loved seeing like, hey man, there's some contrast training in there, right? Like we're going to squat, but we may do some loaded jumps. So I just loved the level of athleticism that's baked into it, because I know a lot of physique coaches don't kind of follow or adhere to that. So I immediately was drawn to that. I was like, oh, that looks really cool. But as I was going through, one of the things that I was really intrigued by, because like you said, obviously you're in a gym now, right? So you have your standard gym pop folks, and they want to lose body fat, but that's a lot different than a high level bikini competitor or somebody that's going to be on the cover of Men's Health. Like there's levels to this, right? I always talk about it with my basketball players. Like there's levels. There's I want to make the high school team. And then there's no, I'm about to get a 7-figure contract in the NBA. There's levels to what you do as well. So I would love to hear, what are some of the biggest differences you see in training, say, your general fat loss client versus your person that is trying to, really stand out and win a medal or be on the cover of Men's Health? What are the differences between those two clients?
For me personally, there's no difference in the process. So when it comes to the high end, let's say you're my bikini world champion, okay, or you're one of my Olympians. So we're treating you 100% like an athlete. Okay, you are an athlete. You are at the top of your sport. You're in the gym. You're putting all the effort in. You literally eat, sleep, breathe. You do everything it takes to reach the top. You are an athlete. Okay, you might not get paid as much as an NBA player.
Yeah, sure.
But you are an athlete. Okay, so let's say you're 100%. Yeah, you're 100% athlete, and you're on that end of things. Okay, now we have someone that's come into my gym for the first time. They maybe they've never lifted before. Okay, so let's just say, just for argument's sake, let's say that they're 0% athlete. They're not doing anything right now. They're lucky to get 4,000 steps in a day. The last time they did any sport was when they were at high school. Okay, so they're zero, let's say. Okay, generally speaking, I'm in my gym at the moment. We're seeing people right in the middle of that. Okay, but let's say people are at zero. Now, regardless, that process is going to look the same. I'm going to try to get you from where you are right now to where you want to be. Okay, we're going to implement nutrition. We're going to implement that training. We're going to put those phases into play, etc. But the difference is I'm going to treat you like a 100% athlete. I'm going to treat you as though I want to get you to maybe a 1-2% athlete. Okay. So what is the most important 1 or 2% that this athlete up here is doing that you can start implementing tomorrow? So that might be, okay, athlete at the top, we're hitting the exact macros every single day. Proteins, fats, carbs, they're bang on every single day, or within, say, 5%. The quality of nutrition is there. The training is going great. You're regularly hitting PRs. You don't miss your workouts. You're sleeping, you're recovering, you're sleeping 8 hours a night, good quality sleep. You're testing HRV and all that kind of stuff, right? And obviously, even world champions don't necessarily get to that level, but let's assume that. What can we pull down to your level that you can do right now? So it might be that person who's at 0%, to pull them to 1 or 2%, it might just be as simple as, okay, your 4 or 5K steps a day, let's get you to 8, right? Or even 6. Let's just get you to there, because that's going to get you a little bit closer to being an athlete. Let's look at your diet right now, and maybe let's just eliminate a couple of things. Let's swap the half a tub of Ben and Jerry's after dinner every day for a protein shake, right? What are some really small changes we can make right now that can put you in the right direction? Let's nail that, and also let's get you to the gym. Okay, let's come to the gym. Let's work on some stuff. Let's just do some body weight stuff. Let's grab a wooden dowel from the back of the gym. Let's just practice some hip hinging. Let's practice some squats with that on your back. Let's just practice some really basic movements with that. Let's get some soft resistance out, a light kettlebell, maybe some sandbags or something that's not too like, oh, I'm going to lift a big weight today. Something that's really non-intrusive, and let's just get you in here and get you moving. Now we're doing that for a month, right? Confidence has been built up. Now what can we gradually start to change? What can we gradually start to implement to get you from that 2 to that 3 to that 4 to that 10? Okay, so we just start to gradually implement those things once we've really dialed in the habits at that 1-2%. And to be honest, a lot of people, when they see me for the first time, or when we start training for the first time, it doesn't take a lot to move that dial in the right direction. And I will have consultations, and we have a bit of a consultation process in here where we have like a client director. She does the consultations. It's more of a sales job, and then that goes to one of my coaches or even myself, and then we start with an assessment. Okay, so the first time I'm seeing someone is an assessment. So we have that kind of big onboarding process with someone, but everyone always says, okay, I want to do this. I want to train 5 days a week. I want to start doing cardio. I want to get on a full diet plan, or I want to track everything. And I love it because there's some really good intent there. And
Yes.
people are like, ready and willing to do anything it takes. But you almost have to just stop them for a second and just say, look, where you're at right now, you're literally talking about going from 0 to 100 within a week. Let's just get you from 0 to just moving. Let's just build a little bit of momentum. What are the easiest things we can do right now? And to be honest, some of them look at me when I say some things like, okay, mate, week 1, let's just swap this for this. I'll write your diet plan out for you, but it's going to look pretty much like how you're eating right now. And let's just change a couple of meals around very, very slightly. Let's change the ratios of fats, proteins, carbs. Let's implement some steps or some non-exercise activity there. Let's just get you moving in the gym. First session might even just be a mobility workout, something like that.
Sure.
And they almost look at you and like, oh, well, that isn't enough. Until it comes to 4 weeks down the line, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you were right. This was enough.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Now we can go to the next step. What's the next step? Okay. You're able to do this. It fits in your life. It was really easy. Cool. Now let's do the next thing. Now this is going to be just as easy because you've got those basics nailed down. Let's do something that you couldn't have done 4 weeks ago because now you've got those routines, those habits all in place. What's the next step? How can we get you? Lifestyle client, you're never going to be at 100. You'll be lucky to be at 50, 60. But in the long term, let's see if we can get you to 30%, 40%, something like that. So as I said, the process is always the same. It's just how we scale things based on where they're at right now.
I just love how manageable it is, right? Because you're right. Those people that want the 5-day-a-week program and give me stuff to do on my off day and, give me my macros and just tell me exactly what to do and I'm going to do it. While well-intentioned, those are also the people that if they try and do that, crash out in about a week or two.
Yeah.
Right? They never stick with it. So I just love the fact that it is manageable and you're almost holding them back, right? In a positive way, right?
Yeah.
To kind of give them that foundation of, hey, look, let's just start here, make it easy, make it basic. There was a guy, he was like a lifestyle minimalist guy. His name was Leo Babuta or something like that. But he used to talk about, hey, don't try and meditate for 20 minutes, meditate for 1. Right? Yeah. Or he would talk about, you don't like to floss. Don't floss all your teeth, floss 1. Right? And it's like, you hear that and you're like, that sounds so dumb. Why would you floss 1 tooth? But it's like, okay, it's just getting the habit going and building kind of the habits into your daily life so that then when you go to the next thing, you're like, oh no, this is easy. But you're doing that with fitness and exercise and I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. As an example, this week, I've had someone really low down on that scale. Okay, a very, very lifestyle client. Granted, used to go to the gym. They said regularly, but once or twice a week. 10 years ago. Okay,
sure.
Very, very out of shape. Back issues, shoulder issues. You name it. It was almost like let's get a list of like what's not wrong with you, kind of client.
Right. Yeah.
And they were expected to come in here, and I think they were expecting some kind of like beasting session or something. I don't know. They had an assessment session with me. Second session was literally, it was largely mobility based, lots of foam rolling. Let's just have a look at your movement whilst you're foam rolling. And to be honest, even the foam rolling, just, holding the position for him just to foam roll his quads, just that plank position almost to roll his quads.
Yeah.
That was a challenge. That was a core exercise for him. So he was just surprised.
Yeah.
And I'm showing him just like, okay, we're going to roll on this thing. We're going to do various things for 10 minutes. Just, I call it the poor man's massage, just kind of making it a little bit fun for him, etc.
Yep.
We were doing that. Bunch of mobility work stuff, probably for your high-end client would be seen as like a warm-up. And then we were pushing a sled, and that was it. But we were pushing a sled in a position that was almost like, we've got a sled here that's a bit like a safety squat bar. So there's no real arm movement involved, just locking him in position there. There was no loading on the back. And at the end of it, like, he was blowing. It wasn't the hardest session in the world, but it was a lot more than what he was used to. And the next day he was sore from even, that kind of relatively low level volume that we did. We push sled, very concentric based. There's no major kind of eccentric loading there. You wouldn't normally expect that soreness in there. But we get it all the time. And this was the same person that was, almost wanting to come in here and expecting to, I don't know, go on the leg press and do drop sets and whatever.
Right.
And I'm putting them on the floor on a foam roller and getting them to do mobility work and push a sled for a while, So absolutely, it is easy in a way. But the hardest part is actually, I suppose, selling that, because they do come in expecting more to be pushed. But then, I said, it takes a while until they start to see the results come from it, or even they finish that workout. Then they start to realize actually that, oh, okay, I was wrong. I'm going to trust this process.
Right. I love it. Yeah, we're very similar in that sense. And I always tell people, look, you didn't get into this shape or into this position in like the last week, right? So we're not going to fix it in a week. It's going to take time. So something else I was thinking about, because again, I'm not in the physique game like you are, and obviously for you it's super nuanced, right? It's not just being lean, but having the right proportions and all of that. And you've been doing this like 2 decades now. So I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the hardest, or maybe some of the most difficult areas for your clients to develop or build? What are those like trouble areas?
Yeah, so I think as we mentioned before, so with the T Nation thing, so I was writing a lot about glutes and hamstrings training. A lot of glutes, hamstrings, and a fair amount of core training there, and a little bit of shoulders in there. But it was mostly kind of glutes, hamstrings focused. And, you had the likes of, for example, like a Brett Contreras, who wrote about it in one way, and I was just writing about it in a completely different way, and almost more, I suppose, applying it to training, showing some new different exercise variations, exercises you could add to your toolbox without getting kind of too crazy. So that naturally appealed to a lot of the bikini and figure athletes, where they were always being told that you got to grow your glutes, you got to grow your hamstrings, or glute hamstring tying, glute ham tying. They're things that we constantly hear about. Even if someone's glutes and hamstrings are very, very, very well built, we will always get judges' feedback of, you need more glutes, need more hamstrings. So it always tends for females, it always tends to be those areas. What we tend to find is that the approach a lot of people take, regardless of men or women, is like, okay, I need to work on this body part. So in that sport, you being able to build that body part dictates whether you win or not. Okay. In Gen Pop, you being able to build your chest makes no difference, right? It's just you want to build your chest. But in that sport, you're very, very reliant on, you have to build up those certain areas. You have to be in proportion. We can't be choosing exercises that might be, I don't know, a squat variation, right? You want to grow your glutes? Sure, squat is a great one. But what if you're also being told that your quads are overpowering? Do we want to be now squatting with you? That's the question we're playing about with. Or do we want to isolate a little bit more? Do we want to stick to more RDL kind of stuff? Do we want, if we do squat, do we want a barbell back squat? Or do we want maybe a low bar squat? Do we want a box squat? Do we want to use like a power squat machine or a leg press with your feet higher up? So there's a few more kind of nuances in there and a few more details we need to work with, because these people are literally reliant on almost those individual areas seeing more growth and other areas that might need to be held back. The trouble is, what you get is that some guy is told that you need to grow your chest. Okay. Automatically, guy goes, okay, I'll train my chest more. Okay. Right. Same with a woman who's been told in bikini that they need to grow their glutes more. Naturally, it's, I need to do more glutes. Okay. So they'll do 3, 4, 5 days a week training glutes. The quality of the sessions goes down. They're basically just throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I'm a fan of high frequency training if it's applied correctly. On certain body parts, there are some body parts it works well for and some it doesn't personally. So that's the large thing that I see is people start training with me, and in particular women. That's just mostly I coach women. And they're basically just throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. None of it's resulting in any more glute growth, hamstring growth. Their core's looking the exact same as what it was, a year ago, sometimes even worse. So it's like, okay, what can we do now to, you're already throwing everything at it. You're throwing the kitchen sink at it. It's not a case of doing more. It's a case of actually,
Right.
let's look at your program. Let's see what you're doing. And actually, let's strip it down. Let's find out what's working, keep what's working. Anything that's not working, it's wasted volume. We need to get rid of that. Okay. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing we do. It's not necessarily, here's a completely brand new program. It's, what are you doing right now? What can we strip away? Now, with what's left, what can we do better out of that? So can we,
Mm.
maybe can we change the set rep range? Can we use some special techniques there? Can we maybe use some assistance exercises that might complement that better to how you're doing things at the moment? And that's the same really, whether it's, glutes and hamstrings and core versus, someone wanting to grow their shoulders or their back or whatever. It's always, people thinking that more is better. And when the reality is, it's actually a lot of time less is better, but let's
Yep.
try and build on the quality of that as well at the same time. So, form check videos, and also, I'm big on queuing, and that's harder in the online space. A
Sure.
lot easier on the in-person space, but big on
Absolutely.
queuing and just making sure that we are perfecting as much as we can those big meat and potato exercises before we just start adding in that junk volume.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely love that. You know what's fun is I'm kind of like going in the Wayback Machine here, and when Eric and I were writing a lot for T Nation, we were obviously powerlifting at the time, and it was fun because it's the model and the approach that we took to powerlifting is what you're doing with bodybuilding and physique training. So we were very focused on, hey, if you're a bench presser and you're missing off your chest, right? Okay, what muscles are there? What exercises? Like, you can think from a muscle perspective, from a compound movement perspective, what exercises put us in that position and train that. It's just cool to see you doing that very same thing, but with physique training, right? Because the last thing you want to do,
exact same. Yeah.
it is. It's just a different end goal, but the thought process is exactly the same. So that's what I love about it. It's so similar to what we were doing back then. It's very cool.
As an example, and it probably relates highly to what you used to do. I ran a session today. Someone who, let's say, they're probably in that 50% category, got a few niggles, few injuries. Their session looked like some activation primer drills. We kind of doing some a few like low level plyo drills just to start off with within that warm up. A little bit of kind of core activation kind of stuff as well. Did some dead bug kind of stuff. We were deadlifting then. We were deadlifting in the trap bar, working up to some like heavy sets of 6. And then off that, we were doing some, higher volume. What we're doing, some front foot elevated split squats. After that, we were doing, we did some assistance work, leg extensions, hamstring curl variations. After that, it's very much the same, in terms of that format. It's like, okay, we've hit our big move there, or we've hit our kind of big. With me, it's like the big 2 moves rather than we're just deadlifting that day. With me, it's kind of like, okay, we've got a big 2. And then after that, it's like, okay, what are our supplement exercises that can kind of work within that frame as well? Because he has traditionally had some back issues. It was like, okay, there's only so much like hinging volume and I suppose compound movements that he could do. So, okay, let's get you on the leg extension. Let's do a little bit of isolation work. Let's get you on the hamstring curl machine. Let's just do some isolated work there. Let's do some, do some hanging knee raises, just get a little bit of traction through the spine at the end, that kind of stuff. But it's the exact same, just applied just to a slightly different athlete. And we're probably using a slightly higher rep range. You might have called it cardio back in the day. We just call it hypertrophy training.
Yeah. And the other thing I like is too, I think the longer you do this, there's nothing wrong with a barbell. Like, I still use a barbell with myself and my clients, but like finding ways, like you start to realize maybe over time, like the barbell isn't the only tool. So, hey, maybe I am going to do some heavy squats or RDLs or deadlifts, and that might be my core base exercise. But there's nothing wrong with some split stance and single leg stuff in there. Like, that gives me some targeted things. Something I've come full circle on is getting machines based on into some of my programs again. It's like, hey, sometimes you just got to grow a specific muscle, right? Somebody has a calf strain. Hey, we have to attack a calf. What's the easiest way to do that? Isolate it and then build it back up. So, no, I just love how you do it. And something else came to mind as we were going through this. Like, how many days per week are like your highest level people doing this? I mean, how many days per week are they in the gym? Obviously, it's a lifestyle. It's 24/7 type thing. How many days a week are they in the gym?
So at the highest level, just from a psychological perspective, at the highest level, they love it. Like the gym is
Yeah,
their
sure.
space. So let's say you're
Sure.
working with a high level team sport athlete, like they're doing their stuff on the field, or you know they're doing their running work, they're doing their speed agility drills, all stuff like that. Let's say outside, and then
Yep.
they're also doing their gym work as well on top of that. Okay,
Yep.
with our sport, or the people that have it, you know, where the physique as a sport, that is
Yes.
their job, right? They are spending
Yes.
a
Yeah,
lot of their
sure.
time in the gym. They love it. That's their space. They're not going out to kick a football afterwards or or pitch a ball or
Right.
whatever. They're not doing that kind of
Right.
stuff. So they feel as though they need to spend a really long period of time there, and they almost, I suppose, feel guilty when they're not spending time there. So
Mm.
it comes down to psychology at the end of the day. Now, in
Yeah. Okay.
general, I say most people, they can get where they want to be in 4 or 5 days a week.
Yeah, sure.
No more than maybe 50, 60 minutes. I'm looking at things from a volume perspective. So I program based on how much volume each week do I want you to be doing. I'm big on tracking the workout data. So it's like, okay, based on your your lifting performances at the moment, you know, we're seeing good progress at this amount of volume each week. Okay, we could push the volume up, or it could be the other way around. Okay, maybe we've pushed the volume up too much, we need to pull it down. Okay, so I'm seeing
Sure.
things as a volume per week. Now, if I want you to be doing, I don't know, 40 sets of something each week, it makes no difference to me, honestly, whether you're getting that in over 4 days, 5 days, 6 days a week. If you
Mm.
tell me you really, really, really love to be in the gym, you feel guilty being out of the gym, I will say to you, cool, okay, if you want to lift 6 days a week, we will lift 6 days a week. But just bear in mind, those sessions will be shorter and they will be much lower volume. You could do
Mm.
the exact same volume over 4 days, even 5, and you've got, you know, 2 or 3 days spare now to spend with your family. Maybe you're just focusing on steps, just diet, you know, a little bit of, you know, maybe conditioning on those days or something, but you've got more free time. So really, it just depends on their psychology. I would love to say to everyone, 4, 5 is a bonus kind of thing.
Right.
5 days tends to be like nooks and crannies kind of
Yeah,
territory. It's
sure.
like I've run out of volume that I want you to be hitting per body part. Let's add in a little bit of, you know, abs, calves, and forearms kind of thing, and
Sure.
sprinkle it in.
Absolutely.
But as I said, it's down to the psychology, and if they say they want to be training 6 days a week, it's just an education side of things. It's me just explaining to them like, okay, you're not going to be in that gym for very long if you're doing it 6 days per week, but I'm happy to oblige, because at the end of the day, we're only going to get great results if you stay on track and if you love the program.
Mm. I love this. I love this. It reminds me, I kind of had this discussion with a new basketball player the other day. He's like, how many days a week should I be in the gym? And kind of my standard response is, if you're a pro, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Right? Now, as you're saying this, I'm kind of thinking through what I'm doing. And it's like, all right, if you're in there 3 days, I don't have the total volume, but there's like certain boxes I want to check, right? Like certain things I need to see you be able to do, things that'll make me feel good about, you know, your ability to stay healthy and perform well. So it's like there's the 3 day, right? And it's a little bit longer. And then there's the 4 day, it's a little bit shorter. And then, oh, but if you want to come 5, it looks a lot like the 4, but like you said, the nooks and crannies, right? Well, now we got an extra day. We'll do some conditioning, right?
Yes.
We're going to do some accessory weak areas. We're going to do some extra mobility work. Maybe we'll do some BFR on the bike. But I like how you think about that. It's very similar to the way I do things. And like you alluded to, part of it is psychological, right? I think that's
Massively.
a great piece, because even some of my guys are like, I just like to be in the gym. Okay, great. I'm just going to manage how we set up your training program, because most people assume if you're in the gym 5 days a week, you're just getting cooked 5 days a week. And so I have to explain to them that's not exactly how it's going to work.
Completely.
Love it. Love it. Okay. I got a couple questions, like random questions that, you know, as I was going through this, I would love to hear your thoughts on. The first one is, are there any traditional or like staple exercises, right? Like things that popular culture would say, this is one of the best exercises, where you're like, no, I just don't like it, right? Or maybe exercises where it's been promoted to do one thing and you're like, I really don't think it does. Anything like that for you? Because again, exercise selection for you is a really big deal, right? There's a lot of nuance involved. So are there any staple exercises you're just like, no, I just don't like it?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I have not programmed a straight barbell back squat probably for about the last probably 3 years for a client.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Yeah.
with.
I'm there
and that's
too,
not,
but I'm interested. I want to know why.
and that's not to say I don't like it. It has its place,
Yep.
right? In the context of the rest of the programming and everything that they're doing, keeping them injury free, etc. Bear in mind, we're talking about people that want to change the way they look. They're not
Yes.
necessarily orientated towards being able to lift the most weight with a barbell back squat. Okay.
Yep.
So it's very much about, let's, building your quads, right? Or building your glutes,
Yep.
say, which you might traditionally use a straight barbell back squat for. Well, it always just gets to a point where when I'm writing a new program for someone or layering in some new exercises, whatever, there seems to always be a better option for that person at that time than a straight barbell back squat. As an example, bear in mind, I'm working with people who like volume. They are volume junkies. I'm happy to pull them back. So we've got to think about what are they doing the rest of the week outside of their leg workouts or their lower body workouts. So, if we're doing a lot of pressing, if we're doing a lot of overhead pressing, chest press type variations, lots of shoulders work, all that kind of stuff. Do I really want them in a high bar position on that back for a period of time, especially with the type of load that we want that will actually create some kind of stimulus? Or even is a safety squat bar a better position? Am I putting you in a better position with a safety squat bar? Same exercise. You actually can't lift as much either, which is kind of a nice bonus. It's nicer on the shoulders. There's better longevity. And when you're doing that, there's not going to be an impact on your, on your shoulders workout the next day or whatever. So it just tends to be that, again, it is a great exercise. It can have its place, but in the context of the rest of the programming, it just always seems that there is a better option when it comes to it.
Yeah.
It's also, and it comes down to online versus in person. In that online coaching space, I just really want to be in there in the trenches with them when they are doing that barbell back squat.
Absolutely.
So there is a little bit of that behind it as well, and they can send as many form check videos as they want to. And we can even we could do RDLs, and I don't mind deadlifts and things in there as well. Even then, they're sometimes a little bit questionable with a straight bar from a physique standpoint. It's like, okay, do we want you deadlifting off the floor, conventional deadlift off the floor? Because what are we deadlifting for? Well, okay, we're probably deadlifting because we want to grow our glutes and hamstrings. Well, is an RDL or a stiff leg deadlift a little bit better? Well, it potentially could be. So, is there a better option there? Or is there even like a back extension or something like that, that obviously has less loading. It's not necessarily as comparable, but, an RDL, a single leg RDL, a B stance RDL, is that a better fit to grow your glutes and hamstrings than a conventional deadlift off the floor? Again, it's not a bad exercise. I love them, right? I do come from that background as an S&C coach, learning from, a really high level powerlifter where we were, doing a lot of my internships and we were, nailing the basics with the barbell. But the more and more I trained real people, the more and more, I suppose, the straight bar just got, eliminated. And we start to use more specialist bars. Bench pressing, we use like a Swiss bar, for example, for a bench press, or dumbbells with a slightly more maybe neutral grip or something. That's not to say I don't program a bench press. I do. I think it's really great for a lot of people. Big into like floor pressing, big into using, it's got a bench block. So it's like using like some blocks to bench press off with like a board press.
Oh, yeah.
But it attaches to the bar rather than it being on your chest. And you can change.
I think we have one or two of those. Yeah, those are nice.
They're really cool. And again, it's novelty as well for the client, but we can limit that range of motion. We can do I think it's an old West Side barbell one, triceps death, where you're doing like a narrow grip bench press. You add a board in, add another board in, add a board in, and you can do that stuff with a straight bar and it works really, really well. So I would probably just say in general, a lot of things with a straight bar versus when I first started just got eliminated the more and more and more people I work with. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong, we've got about 10 straight bars in here, but
absolutely. Us
they're just
too.
not
Yeah.
used as much as maybe some of the specialist barbells in here.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Huge specialty bar guy. And we've got, all the different squat variations and barbell bench variations, the neutral grip, the football, you said it very, very, very well. When you work with a lot of real people, you start to realize they're not willing to put up with some of the aches and pains. Like if you're a power lifter, you got to squat, bench, and deadlift. You have to do it with a straight bar, right? Even if you mix it up in training, at some point you got to go back to the straight bar. When you train people that are just focused on physique, right? Looking great naked. In my space, if I'm training athletes, there's no rule that says I have to barbell back squat or deadlift conventionally from the floor. It's all different options and you figure out what works best for the person. So I love that. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when it comes to their physique focused training?
I think the easy one, the low hanging fruit, is people just aren't on a plan. So, and same with your background. Like if you want a measurable result, you've got to get on a plan. You've got to figure out where you want to get to, and you've got to work backwards off of that. What do we need to be doing to get from where we are right now to where we want to be? What does that look like? It shouldn't look like, okay, I want to, I don't know, let's say we put in strength sports. Okay, I want to bench press more. I want to bench press more in 12 weeks. In my world, in more the transformation world, the equivalent is I want abs in 12 weeks, just as an example. It's not quite the same. So when we go down that strength world, it's like, okay, bench press. I'm just got to bench press more. And there's only so much you can actually bench press until you start to feel your shoulders give out, et cetera, et cetera. And you kind of figure out along the way the optimum amount of volume each week you can bench press, and you're probably going to get away with it to a degree, and your bench press will start to improve. With my world, it kind of is like, okay, my abs aren't starting to show this week. I'll just start to do more abs. Oh no, they're not showing this week. I'll do even more abs. Or I'll try and change my diet. Or I've just seen this diet on Instagram and I'll do this diet instead. I'll go to keto, or the latest thing, I'll go on the sugar fasting diet, or I'll do something else or whatever. And there's that constant hop around from one to another. At least when it's in a strength sport world and you're after a target like an increased bench press, you're going to keep at it, and you're kind of eventually going to figure out a large amount of things where eventually you do get some kind of result at the end. It might not be optimal. You might have made a lot of mistakes, and of course, if you worked with your coach, you're going to get a much better result at the end of it. And with a structured program, you're going to get a much better result. But in my world, you just get people hopping about all the time between different things. They might try it for 1 day, 1 week, whatever. And the best thing they can do is just get on a plan. It doesn't matter what the plan is almost at the start. If you're someone that is not on any plan, the best thing you can do is open up a book, grab any book, go and buy a Human Kinetics book with a load of workouts in, open it up and just do that same workout there. I don't know. So it's a Monday, I don't know, back and chest workout, whatever, a push-pull workout. Do that workout every Monday for 6 weeks. Let's see what happens. Chances are you've probably seen some kind of change with that to your physique. You've probably looked a little bit fuller. You've got a little bit stronger, etc. Just by sticking to that one plan.
Yeah, I love it. If I was smiling when you were talking about that, I was thinking about one of the guys when we first opened our gym. He was a notorious program hopper. And now keep in mind, I wrote programs for everybody that was in our gym, right? This guy was even open gym. And I remember I would write him a program, and literally before he'd even gotten through the first day, he was already like Xing stuff off and like writing in his own exercises. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, just follow it. Just give it 4 weeks. I promise it'll help. Now, eventually he decided he liked training on his own. He built an amazing garage gym and he does his own thing. But I can smile and agree with that because I've seen that so many times where it's just so hard, dude. But you got to do it. Just give me 4 weeks. Like, let's see what kind of like measurable changes we can make. And if it doesn't work, great. At least we know it doesn't work and we can try something else. But you never know. With every week, it's a different goal or a different workout, different routine. You just never know what really works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and it actually, I'm going to give a shameless plug here. So we've actually
I love
got,
it.
I've got a book out at the moment. I think I wrote it 4 years ago. Human Kinetics published it, called Ultimate Abs. Now, it's basically described as like the ultimate core and abdominal training guide. Okay. Now, Human Kinetics approached me again probably 2 years ago now and said, "Would you do another book for us?" And I was like, "No, I'm not. Like, I'm too busy. I don't have the time." Reality is, you do a book. It's, you're not going to be able to retire off of these books. It's more from a personal branding thing. It's great that you've written a book.
Absolutely.
Adds credibility, etc. And especially if it's with Human Kinetics. Anyway, they approached me and said, "Would you write a book?" I was like, "I'll think about it. What is it?" And they're like, "Actually, well, we don't want you to write it. We want you to be the editor of this book. We want you to contribute, but we also want you to be the editor. So we want you to write, it's called 100 transformation workouts." They're like, "Your job is to basically find the transformation, body focused, strength focused coaches to fill this book with 100 workouts, get them describing the workouts, what they're doing, why they're doing, get their take on things, but then also fill in the gaps. Obviously me contribute as a contributor as well, but also me fill in the gaps as well as to, how we're structuring the book and all that kind of stuff as well, and add in some context within those workouts." And we're finally, 2 years later, we're finally at the point where we've got the photo shoot actually in my gym next week.
Cool.
It's going to be published in January. We've got some awesome coaches involved. So we've got the likes of, who have we got? We've got Joe DeFranco in there. We've got Luca Hocevar in there. We've got Ebenezer Samuel, men's health fitness director. Tasha Wheeler. We've got some really awesome people that have contributed like 5, 6, 7 workouts in there. And all I've done is say to them, "Okay, you've got, can you give me a push workout, a pull workout, I don't know, a hips focus workout, a quads focus workout?" And basically everyone has just contributed to this book. And it's crazy to see how many different styles of training and workouts are in this book now. And it's all in this one book. And the idea is that when it goes in Barnes and Noble and Amazon or whatever in January, that someone can literally just pick up that book, find their favorite strength coach and just be like, "I want to do Joe DeFranco's shoulder day." Okay. And they can just follow Joe DeFranco's shoulder day for 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then they might want to do, I don't know, they might want to do Luca Hocevar's shoulder workout for another 4, 5, 6 weeks after that. But the idea is we're giving it all in one place from coaches that actually coach, not making it so you're having to look on Instagram and chop and change and Facebook and chop and change your workouts all the time. You can pick up a textbook, 100 workouts to choose from. Depending on how you split up your training during the week, it's going to cover that base as well. There's always going to be something to plug and play into your training that week. And it's just got everything all in that one place. So I'm really excited for that to come out, just because, as I said, I think, even some really high level people, some coaches to pick that up, just to see like, what does, how does the likes of Joe DeFranco, how does he program a shoulders workout? What does that look like? And it's got so many people in. It's got Andrew Coates in there as well, who's we call him the mayor of fitness.
That's a good one.
He had to be in there as well. There's loads of people in there, and as I said, it gives you loads of variety as well, because there are many ways to swing a cat. And it's just good to see how many different ideas there are, just to, I suppose, just to help people stay on track with their own workouts.
Absolutely. I love it. All right, man. Big question time. If you could alter the space-time continuum and give young Gareth Sapstead one piece of advice, what would it be?
A little bit different. I'd probably say early on, just know my numbers. So from a business point of view, just obsessing over the numbers a little bit more. So I came from a background where, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And when I went in the industry, I was lucky in a way. I earned more money than what I'd seen with my parents within,
Sure.
within 6 months, getting up to kind of that pay grade, and it just kind of ended up going up and up and up. So my money management skills were not great at that period of time.
Yes.
And it was kind of only after periods of time where, where the income grew and grew and grew, but also still at the end of every month, like back in the day, it was like, I've still got zero in the bank account. What's going on? I'm earning more, but I'm still with a zero at the end. It's if I was talking to young Gareth again, I'd be like, okay, we've got to take more of a profit first approach. You've got to treat yourself more like you're a business. You've got to have multiple bank accounts or multiple pots within your bank account to put your taxes in, to put your, to put your outgoings in, and all your overheads, and just knowing all your numbers. That's the one thing I would tell myself back then. And it's probably only the last, I suppose, halfway through my coaching career so far, the last 10 years, that I've just been even more kind of on that route, really.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. If you have listened to this show for more than a couple years, I guarantee they've heard me talk about profit first.
Yes.
Huge for me as well. It's one of those things where when I really locked that in, both at the gym and then obviously RTS is like a consulting, coaching, whatever you want to, the online space, right? As soon as I started to implement and deploy that, immediately everything got easier, right? And you only need, I'll share this personally. If you ever have one of those like really gnarly tax checks that you're unprepared for, you only need to have one of those to realize I've got to change something, right? Yeah. Where all of a sudden, like you think you're like printing money. Oh my gosh, I got so much money. And then you're not putting enough away. And then you realize next year, oh crap, I owe the government 10, 15, 20K. It only takes one of those to realize I better be better about managing my money all along the way, versus just hoping that I have enough money at the end of the month or the end of the year. So that's great advice. Love it.
It's been a big, especially having an in-person facility. So I've gone from transitioning into an online space and that doing really well. Multiple coaches, we manage many clients online, and that is a thriving business. Overheads, minimal, like so low overheads. There's a lot of profit there. Now suddenly there's an in-person facility, and you've got to pay, you've got to pay the rent, you've got to pay the local council this, you've got to go, like we're paying for like multiple planning officer things at the moment. The equipment, was 6 figures worth of equipment. The flooring is a depreciating asset that you've bought. Like there's so many things you've got to think about. So it's like, I obviously, run the in-person facility. I don't take a paycheck from that. I get paid from the online work and the other work and consultancy stuff that I do. So that's been, I suppose, the biggest shift in the last few months is I've gone from business where in a way it's actually very, very easy because there isn't as big of an outgoing to suddenly like all at once, big overheads compared to what I'm used to. So it's definitely had to be kind of a bit of a mindset shift since having this in-person facility as well.
Yeah. And knowing your numbers in person, absolutely huge. Like you said, the profit margins online, very, very good. I've got a feeling you and I could have a full hour more podcast just talking about money, online versus offline and how that looks. But definitely, if you are offline, if you have a brick and mortar business, you've got to be using something like Profit First to manage that and make sure like we're in a situation where probably neither of us have to get income from our gym, right? Yeah. We have all the other stuff, but if that's your only job, you have to pay yourself too, right? And in a perfect world, you're paying yourself and putting money aside for profit, for taxes, all that. So Profit First. I'll link to it in the show notes so people can find it. But Gareth, I got a couple more questions. You got time for a lightning round real quick?
Go for it.
All right, cool. 4 questions. Your answer can be as long or short as you like. Number 1, coaching, like you said, like close to 20 years now. How long have you been creating content for? When did you start writing at like T Nation and doing all that?
I actually wrote my first online article when I was 16 years old.
Oh my gosh!
I had, not for T Nation. It was for a website called Muscle Talk, and at the time it was quite big. They don't exist now. I wrote an article when I was 16 years old, something to do with eccentric loading. I had no business writing it as a 16-year-old gym instructor at all. But it was almost, writing was always my way of processing information. So I'd
me
read
too.
all the information online. I'd read all these books. I'd write it down. And then sometimes, because obviously I looked up to people that were writing on these big websites, I'd submit it to places. And in this case, it got accepted. I wrote a few articles for them when I was 16 years old, which is mad.
That's cool.
And then, years later, the likes of like T Nation, for example, T Nation, Live Strong, Muscle and Fitness, Flex, all that kind of stuff, men's health, men's fitness. They've all kind of approached me, or even I've approached them to write stuff for them. T Nation was probably the one I've spent the most amount of time on, just because I liked the writing style. I could be more free. And Chris Sugar always just told me, for anyone that doesn't know who he is, he's he's basically the chief content officer. He's like the head honcho there. He decides who gets in and who doesn't. He always basically just used to say to me, okay, if it's interesting, write it down. If I sent something to him and he didn't like it, he'd usually be like, it's not interesting enough, make it more interesting. So that was the main thing that they were looking for. Then that kind of helped me kind of own my writing skills. It helped me get my first book deal, T Nation as well, which was excellent. And that was probably maybe 7 years ago, T Nation.
That's cool.
I think my Facebook probably started only a little bit before that, really late adopter in Facebook. I'll be honest with you, I don't like social media. I actually despise it. But it's kind of, I think, important with what we do now. And especially, obviously, I transitioned into the online space quite a bit. It was essential to have some kind of shop front, in a way, to have an Instagram, to have a YouTube. I've never, I suppose, played the game in terms of what are my numbers, what's my interaction, what's the latest hack on Instagram or whatever. I literally just post, and that's it. I write it, I post it, I maybe like and comment on some of my clients' posts, and that's it. I've been lucky in that, like, my YouTube page grew, my Instagram grew just organically, and it just kind of happened by accident, really. But truth be told, I'm not a fan of social media, but I still do it because it's a bit of an essential these days.
It absolutely is, and I think a lot of coaches that enjoy coaching don't like that side of it. We kind of enjoy being behind the scenes and doing the work, but yes, we're also in a day and age where you have to put yourself out there a little bit, just so people either know who you are, don't forget about you, whatever. But I'm with you.
I'll tell you the best thing I did. At the end of the day, I just want to coach. If I could just coach and not worry about anything else, I would just coach. But we're not in the day and age where we can just coach and clients come to us. Sure, like referrals and retention will always be number one, but we've got to get ourselves out there as well.
For sure.
So the best thing I ever did was hire a videographer who I will see for 2 hours every single week. I put those 2 hours in my calendar. I plan the content based on what's in, like, what client questions did I have that week? What exercises have I been sent to form check, etc. What am I doing myself that's interesting? I literally throughout the week just write in my notes section on my phone some things. I block him out 2 hours. He films it. He edits it. Done. I just post and done.
I love it. Well, and the other thing is too, like, a lot of people struggle when they start doing this with the creative side of it. It's like writing, right? But like good writers are always like prompting themselves, right? So like you were talking about, what questions did I ask? What form checks have I had? Those are prompts, right? So you're using prompts from other people to help you create engaging content. So
and I think it
love
helps
how
improve.
You streamline that.
So if you're writing for the likes of like T Nation now, they've changed angles. I no longer write for them. Nobody writes for them. Basically, they've switched. They've changed. They're basically a nutrition supplement only site. But when they were running and there were some great coaches writing for them, the thing that used to inspire those articles are things that I was seeing in the real world. So, it wasn't a case of like writer's block. What do I write about? It was literally, what am I seeing in the real world? What questions have I had? What movements have I seen? What people having issues with? People coming to me all the time with like, I can't grow my glutes. I can't change the shape of my shoulder. Whatever. It could be any question. And all I'm doing is just like, okay, instead of me answering that question, wouldn't it be great if I wrote a really long answer, some really long form content, and I could simply to that person just send a link to that really long article
Yeah.
or that long
I
YouTube
like
video or
that.
something that I've already done. So it just ended up being this bank of content that I could just send a client that had this really long answer. They tend to never bug you once you sent them this long article afterwards, though, which
Yeah.
is a good and a bad thing.
Sure.
Because it's kind of like you've sent them this big article, and let's be honest, they're probably most of them aren't reading it. But also, you have
Right.
given them a lot of value just in that little message with an online client or an in-person client.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So speaking of in-person clients, you've obviously built a really successful online business. What made you want to get into or get back into the offline game with a gym? Like you said, it's a lot of risk. It's just a lot more responsibility on your part. So what made you want to go back into the gym game?
So, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, so I could not have this space. I could, happily stick in that online space now,
Sure.
make a good income. I could scale that even more. I can work from home. I could travel and go to seminars whenever I want to, and all that kind of stuff if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But there was always kind of that itch I wanted to scratch with the in-person stuff, and especially having my own facility. So in large part, it did come from an emotional thing of I want my own facility.
Yep.
But I had to run the numbers. The numbers had to make sense. I had to put that emotion
Yes.
aside. I had to put those numbers down on paper. This is what it needs to look like. Can we get here? This is how much it costs. Does it make sense? Because the online business essentially is paying for this space,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
If this
Yeah.
was its
Yeah.
own space right now, we've been open for 7 weeks. Like we're in a huge deficit. Like we're multiple
Sure.
six figures in a deficit right now. If you just looked at it as its own business,
Yep.
and I'm not being paid, that's not a nice situation to be in. Luckily,
Right.
with the online side of things, and income from other sources as well, and books and other online things, I'm in a privileged situation where I can afford to take that risk with this space.
Yep.
So it's that, and I wanted to take that risk because I wanted that space. But also, I just love training people. I have always, even though I've not needed to, I have always, every single week, had a client at least to train. And that's because I just enjoy training clients. And for the last few years, especially, it's been a case of renting some space out of a local gym somewhere, or going to an independent gym somewhere and being like, can I pay you $10 per client session kind of thing, and doing things like that. And it's not enjoyable. The gym isn't set up in a way that I want it to. It's not giving a great impression to clients. I create online content. It doesn't look the best. It's not got my branding in it. If I want to run workshops here in the UK, I can't run workshops at these gyms. I don't particularly want to hire out a Hilton or something like that. I want my own space, my own playground that can help, I suppose, elevate that online platform as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So, at the same time, it has to pay for itself. So we have to have, we've got 5 trainers in here at the moment, plus myself. And obviously I try not to to have a full load of in-person training, because I've got to manage the business and manage the online stuff and the online trainers as well. But those trainers, they're getting busy, but they have to, essentially pay for the overheads of this building at the same time. And the building itself has to, I suppose, the brick and mortar business has to make sense from a financial point of view, because it can't be forever. Now, that online side of things is just holding things up.
Yes. Again, profit first, knowing your numbers, right?
Knowing your numbers.
What it comes down to.
You've just got to take your emotions out of it. As much as I would love to have an in-person facility, if those numbers did not make sense, like I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, like mortgage, all that kind of stuff. And I cannot afford to take that kind of risk just because I want a gym. Those numbers just have to make sense.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, number 3. How did you get the nickname the Fitness Maverick? Talk to me about that.
That's quite a short story. 11, 12 years ago, myself and two other people, we basically built a gym together, quite a large gym kind of in the local area. That didn't end up working out. Three people, three different directions they wanted to take things in. But anyway,
Sure.
I was training a client one day using a few kind of, I wouldn't say novelty exercises, just stuff they hadn't done before. The client basically
Right.
said, "Oh, you're a bit of a maverick, aren't you? We should call you the fitness maverick." The next, the next day, another guy at the gym was doing like a bit of a notice board, just like advertising, I suppose showcasing some of the people that were working at the gym. And he
Right.
put my title as the fitness maverick. And it just ended up
Solid.
catching on from there. So people, when I started an Instagram profile, it was at the fitness maverick. People in the gym just started calling me Mav for short. You know,
Yeah.
Gareth. Some people didn't know my name. It was just like Mav. And then
Okay.
it just kind of stuck from there, really.
That's
and yeah,
cool.
we're here today, and it's still stuck around.
I was gonna say that's pretty cool. I don't have a cool nickname, so it gives you more street cred. Okay, last but not least, what's next for Gareth Sapstead? What are you working on? What are you excited about? Anything?
For me, the focus is on growing this brick and mortar business. As much as I would love to be like attending lots of seminars this year, like you and I first met, actually, you know, I followed you for many years. You know, used to read your stuff on T Nation. And I think might have purchased some of your, I think it has some videos and things like that. You know, I've followed you for a long period of time, but the first time we met was at Luca Hosevar's place, in Renton,
Yeah.
at Vigor. You know, I would love to be doing more stuff like that and just kind of getting around and just,
Yes.
you know, to me, there's no such thing as knowing too much. And just, again, just being around like-minded people, just having conversations about what people are doing. I would love to be doing that this year, but I've taken a bit of a back burner on that, just to focus on this brick and mortar business, and just
Sure.
trying to grow that really. I'm off to the US. I've got a few clients competing in San Antonio in September. So I'm literally 2 days in Texas, and then I'm back on the Sunday night, and I'm starting a doctoral degree on the Monday. So I've got that
Oh my
coming
gosh.
into play
Wow.
as well. It's a part-time degree though, so I'm hoping I can manage that on top of things. But again, I've just said to myself, look, if it's got to make sense for me. If I start
Yep.
it and I can't keep up with the workload and it's affecting what keeps a roof over mine and my kid's head, if it affects that,
Yep.
no problem. Worst case, I've lost some money. It's not a big deal, you know. But
Yeah.
if I don't do that now, you know, it's a long story, but it's a good opportunity to study what I want to study down that line of, essentially, I'm doing a doctorate in physique transformation, essentially, and
Oh, very cool.
coaching
Yeah.
best practice for transformation focused coaches, basically. And it is a very, very unique opportunity. And if I didn't jump at it, I know I'd regret it. So that's the next thing for me this year. But there's a lot on my plate, so we'll see how things go.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it, man. Well, Gareth, it's been amazing. I know it's quite a bit later for you than it is for me, so I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. You've already coached, closed the gym up. Where can my listeners find out more about you and all the great work that you're doing?
The easiest place where I probably is easy to message me is at the Fitness Maverick on Instagram. It's actually me. It's not a bot that's going to message you back. I'm pretty old school. If someone follows me, I send them a message back and say, "Hey, great to meet you." You know, just because, you know, I like to meet someone and know what someone's doing and like, why did you follow me, kind of thing. And it can be time consuming sometimes. And to be honest, like, I don't always manage to get around to doing that to people. But if you follow me, I'll tend to send you a message back and just be like, "Hey, how you doing?" kind of thing. It's me.
That's
it's
cool.
not a bot. It's not a way to sell you something. It's literally me going, you know, it's like meeting you in person and giving a handshake in my world.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Well, I'll make sure I link to all the stuff that you talked about. I'll get your IG on the show notes. But Gareth, again, man, thank you so much for coming on, brother. This was really, really great.
Absolute pleasure speaking with you.